All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White. I didn't think it was possible, but yeah, Trump went down to the Guadalupe River and participated in a press conference in which the officials from the local area lauded him and talked about how important he was. He talked about how important he was. One big lie fest, one lie after another. 37 people died, and all they could talk about was what a wonderful job that was done. It is ridiculous. It is unhinged. It goes to accentuate the cognitive decline that this man is experiencing. And wow, like Ketanji Brown Jackson said, people just aren't paying attention. She wants more people to pay attention to what's going on in this country today, much less the world. The world is a little off kilter because of this clown and its clown car cabinet. All right, I'm joined by my partner in crime, Brock Ganeles, way up in the beautiful confines of the Hudson River Valley. And Brock, you're just north of New York City. You know, this kind of stuff doesn't normally happen there, but we did have Superstorm Sandy. Remember the flooding that hit us with Superstorm Sandy and hit the 5 boroughs? I mean, that was ugly. And, you know, so it can happen here. And I know a lot of folks like to live in that bubble, but this is ridiculous. This press conference that he conducted today, again, just shows how detached from reality, you know, these nut jobs really are. These right-wing nut jobs are just Looney Tunes.
Yeah, Mark, I want to look. First of all, I watched the press conference. I don't know why I did it to myself. I watched the YouTube on Fox News, the press conference, because I knew what was going to happen, right? I knew Trump is like such a psychopath. He has no capacity for compassion. So I knew there was going to be nothing coming from him on that. But it hit it in three ridiculous aspects. Number one, the science. Number two, and number three, now the commentary about it. Number one on the science, which is driving me nuts, is I see stories running around that like, oh, there were 4 1-in-1,000-year floods that went on in the last several days. And I'm just like, the math is wrong. If it's 1 in 1,000 years, you can't have 4 of these throughout the country. Like, let's just acknowledge the science that climate change has altered the dynamic for weather globally. So therefore, maybe we can't call it extreme weather anymore. It's just, this is the weather pattern now. Right. And it's just more devastating outcomes more frequently. So stop calling these a surprise. We need to be aware and expecting these no matter where you live. Between wildfires, heavy winds, extreme heat, flooding, hurricanes, tornadoes, right? Anything can get you anywhere in America. You shouldn't be surprised of anything, any devastating weather, because we denied climate change. So first of all, pretending like these things are like now out of the ordinary, like how can we still, it's like considering mass shootings are out of the ordinary. No. Right. It happens all the time in one way or another, in one place or another. So yeah, it's surprising when it happens in your little town. Maybe the odds against it happening in your little town, but not nationally. This shit's going to go on all the time because we denied the science. So stop pretending like these tragic events aren't going to happen, weather-related tragic events aren't going to happen. I guarantee the insurance companies aren't calling this 1 in 1,000 years. They're changing the rates. They're like, this shit happens all over the place all the time, so we got to be prepared for everything. We're not going to get run out of business on this stuff. Number two is the response. The response was horrendous, right? We know it was horrendous because Trump, we don't have FEMA, right? We cut staffing at these weather services. So yeah, it was kind of perfect stormish because it hit at 3, 4 in the morning. Staffing wasn't as good at the local level. They had voted down some funding for sirens over the years because they knew this was a vulnerable area, like it's the foothills. They didn't expect this type of storm, but they always knew that there could be flooding in this river. But they wanted to save money, and they voted down all these different aspects. You know, there's never any prevention, right? So we had no money for prevention. So, and then the response from the federal government was horrendous, right? Kristi Noem needs to personally sign off on everything over $100,000. She was nowhere to be found. They're down there 6 days later pretending like they were on this shit in the first minute. Of course they weren't. It was only they're lauding the Coast Guard for being there right away, because of course the Coast Guard was there right away. Local officials were there right away. The federal government was nowhere to be fucking found, and the state wasn't prepared for it because they got to cut bureaucracy too. And then 3, coming to the messaging today, that press conference, if any of you even have a couple minutes just to watch, in 2 minutes of it, you'll get the full hour. It was just like the cabinet meeting the other day. It was a bunch of sycophants sitting around the room talking about how important it was that Trump was there and how uplifting it was to all the people and Texas strong and all this horse shit. But and then it all segued back to Trump and how great he is. And then he starts talking about the price of eggs and Saudi Arabia, and he doesn't even understand really what a siren is. And he calls the one reporter that asks a tough question, he calls her evil for asking a question about what he thought about some of the locals, expressing displeasure that the siren system wasn't in place. All three of those metrics, it was a fucking disaster, and it was a malignant narcissist on display, and it was just a matinee of America in decline. It just could have summed up America in decline in the 1 hour that we saw down in Texas.
Absolutely. And that makes me wonder, Brock, how come there's never any dissent in the room? How come all these officials are always on Trump's side and believe whatever he says goes? How come there's never anyone in the room to call him out that sticks to it? That says, you know what, 137 lives are gone, right? Because of you and the Doji Bros. Because of the stuff you thought didn't matter anymore, so that you could have a little bit more in your pockets. So you could buy another yacht to water ski behind. Why is there never any dissent?
They're not invited. It was all Republicans in the room. They're all talking about how the left-wing media is making up these stories that they cut programs and cut funding, and that it's a lie, and that they were right on top of it. I mean, you have Trump saying Kristi Noem did a great job, her saying Trump did a good job. So they're all just going around the room praising how great they all are, till this one woman gets up and asks one question about the criticism about the fact that there were no sirens, and that's why so many fucking people are dead, right? Because half of them didn't wake up. They didn't wake up till they were underwater. And so she gets basically shut down. And the rest of them in the room, Dr. Phil's in the room. I mean, it's a clown show, but they all need Trump's votes. So they're all making sure they're on his good side. And just one little petty side note too. Melania was there. Before we segue to the ICE fucking raids that are going on, Melania was there and Trump throws it to her to speak. And after 40 years in the country, and with ICE running around saying that you're going to get carted away if you can't speak English. I mean, she could barely speak 4 sentences of English.
Sure, but she speaks 5 languages.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're denigrating, we're trying to, put in the back of vans and send to Alligator Alley anyone who maybe doesn't speak the King's English. And right. There's the First Lady, can barely get out a fucking couple sentences.
Right.
Down in Texas. And I'm just like, what a fucking fraud that entire effort is.
Who also got a genius visa to come to the country. Then her parents came, and she gave birth to an anchor baby. So there's all that to unpack with that. But nevertheless, these people are just ridiculously greedy, obviously. But, I think it just speaks to the lack of humanity. They could care less about a loss of life, as long as it ain't them or their kids. And, even Steve Scalise, who's in the news today, I figure after the softball game shooting, he might have had a change of heart. He's worse than ever now. A guy walking around with bullet fragments in him. He's worse than ever. So these people are not going to change.
Two black policemen saved his fucking life.
Exactly.
Shouldn't have been, right? They fucking printed their asses out there in the fucking open to to take bullets to fucking save his fucking racist life. Yeah.
Right. And so my point is, they're not going to change until we change them.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not coming around.
No. And as each day passes, I'm pretty convinced there's not going to be a 2026 election, because you got 33 Senate seats and all the House seats up for grabs. Who's going to let that go to a free and fair election? Not the one Trump I know. I mean, it's not going to happen. So we're going to continue to see this. We're going to continue to see these massive loss of lives. You and I have already talked about hurricane season. The head of FEMA didn't even know that such a thing existed, right? And we're going to see a continued assault on Black and brown people. And I think the only reason we're even getting this response in Texas, that he even went down there and brought along the heavy hitters like Melania, is because there were so many white Americans, good Texans, that were lost.
God-fearing, particularly religious.
God-fearing.
I guess that region 77% for Trump, this Kerr County where it went down.
Right. Heavy Trump presence. And somebody probably said to him, hey, I got the data right here. You probably ought to go. 7 out of 10 people down there voted for you, right? And the other two voted for the third party candidate. One person out of every 10 voted for Kamala. You got to go. And
Yeah,
that's probably how
Trump didn't want to
Yeah.
be there. He
Yeah.
doesn't even have the capacity for tears. Like, so he had no compassion. He was bored with the press conference. He was segueing to other topics. He was just waiting for it to come back to him and something
Right.
that could be about him. It literally was a press conference about him, not the 137 people that had died. It was literally a political spin
Right.
press conference.
Right. And that's the problem with this guy. You can't be a good leader when you lack the empathy gene.
Yeah, he's
But I mean, we've long since quit looking for leadership from this clown. But, the people behind him, the people underneath him working under the cloak of darkness in the basements of Washington, D.C., the Project 2025 Heritage Foundation freaks are moving right along. Tom Homan out with some rather disgusting comments today. I mean, we keep asking the question. It's the racism, folks. Are you satisfied yet that it's the racism?
Yeah, Holman's decided today, or announced today, proclaimed that ICE can stop any person for any reason if they just don't have the look that any of his agents feels is appropriate. So basically, it's a national stop and frisk. It's entirely racial profiling at a federal and national scale, and it eliminates any, presumption or need for any even expectation or chance that someone's committing a crime or in any way not towing the line by the American law and order, and there's no due process after it. And Homan's just saying, hey, our agents are out there and they can just make that decision on the fly. And if they don't like the look of someone, aka they're browner than they think, a true American should be, then they can just stop that person, right?
True Americans. That's an interesting thought right there.
Yeah, I don't know if that was his quote. That might have been my paraphrase, but that's certainly
Right.
like in practice. That's
Right.
in practice what is going on.
Exactly. And you've got to be white enough not to get stopped. I guess Melania would be fine, even though she can't speak the King's English, but she does speak some 5 languages. English ain't one of them. But so this eliminates any due process. This eliminates any recourse through the courts because these people have decided these little notes that they put on napkins are going to, supersede standing law.
Well, they
Is that-
want to
they're
they want to
making-
circumvent needing a warrant, right? So now you take that out the window because they see what the playbook is to not comply, is to not allow to ask for a warrant, to not allow for a search, to not allow within the home. But now if ICE agents can just decide that they need to apprehend someone just based on the look, and you don't have to. They don't have to come with anything, right? They could just come with bring their racism is the only card they have to bring as an ICE agent.
Right. And, these guys are pretty much operating as just Klansmen did back in the day, right? Go to a black or brown home, kick in the door, pull you out. Back then they were hanging you up. Now they're sending you to a life sentence, possibly in some unknown, third country. Whoever is, willing to send us the invoice. And
Well, for now it's more profitable to send people to a concentration camp because then they can basically bill the American people for the room and board, right? While private companies rake in the dough. So it's just a transfer of wealth from taxpayers to corporations. So currently that's better than killing people because it's more lucrative to have people alive in concentration camps. You can bill for it.
And
But you can invoice as long as people are alive. You can invoice.
And any of you investigative journalists out there who want to look and see who purchased large quantities of those private prison company stocks, take a look at that and see whose stock price is rising. There are only about 3 or 4 private prison companies out there, and I'm sure their stocks are rising through the roofs. The CEOs are getting bonuses because they're building more prisons, right? Housing more people. And, that's what it's going to be. And we, the American people, are sitting back and taking it. which is the worst. I mean, I never thought the American people were so apathetic, about their neighbors, friends, associates, migrants in this country. What is wrong? Why do people have such a problem with our migrant population? You're a goddamn migrant. Nobody's from here. The people that are from here were already raped and pillaged, given blankets covered in disease. Right?
Supposedly polling showing that now like 70% of Americans now are actually in favor of immigration and see it as a benefit to the country.
Yeah.
And I'm going under the supposedly label because, when positioned that way, when the question's asked that way,
right,
most people still say yes, but they'll still vote for policies that throw brown people in cages, right? There still isn't that connection. The racism still outweighs their answer to that question, because otherwise we would hear someone beyond, I think Gavin Newsom said it 2 weeks ago, we would start to hear white politicians touting a pro-immigration message.
Right.
And I still wait for that day. And not only do I want a pro-immigration message that's not tethered to a law and order message and a security at the border message, right? Because usually you have to preamble it with, well, we need great security at the border and we need to, militarize our police, right? Because obviously now I can say I'm pro-immigration now that we have guns everywhere and we're letting these brown people in. But I still never hear white politicians go out and say that they're proponents not only of immigration but of a multiracial, multi-ethnic America, and challenge America to acknowledge that that's who we are and that's who we're going to be and that's what they're going to vote for.
Right. And here's the thing. How come they don't know this?
Who's the they?
These politicians. How come they don't know that the messaging needs to be that simple, that clear, right? Rock, we've been on the air 18 minutes.
Because they're in office. Because they're in office and they got in office without saying it. And they're afraid if they say it that they'll lose white voters.
Right.
That's my opinion on why they won't say it. Black or Latino politicians will say it.
Right.
Because they're not going to get hurt by saying it, right? Obviously, the voters already know what they look like, right? So they're not worried about what they say. But white politicians, I think, are afraid to alienate the white voters that they still feel that, that they still need. And I don't think they believe that even when they hear white people say that they're pro-immigrant, that they can go out and actually tout it and tout that being pro-immigrant actually means you're pro-multicultural America, multiracial America, because you're not just pro-immigration from Europe. Europeans aren't coming to the U.S. They got a nice life, right? They got universal health care, right? Europeans aren't coming to America anymore. It's other countries that people are emigrating to America, and it's mostly, black and brown. So white politicians, I don't think, believe that their voters will connect those two dots and will make that leap, and that their opponent will just go out and do they're not tough on crime, or look, you're gonna, they would play the scare tactics. Oh, look at this person. He wants to let in more of the others, and they get Willie Horton.
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't understand why white politicians can't help white people understand why we're better as a country with a multi-ethnic, multi-racial coalition that works together. Some of our leading minds in the sciences. Oh, that's right, we don't like science anymore. In mathematics, oh, that's right, math doesn't math anymore. In medicine, forgot COVID, we stopped believing in medicine around COVID time. Some of the leading minds in these fields are also black and brown people. Some of the leading minds in research are also black and brown people.
I don't think it's how we're going to get there. I think we're going to get there the opposite way, because from what I'm seeing is that the director of agriculture came out and said, oh, well, we'll just replace these brown migrant undocumented workers with Medicaid recipients. So that's how people are going to keep their health care. So Medicaid recipients are going to go out and work in the fields for 14 hours a day, right? Picking lettuce, the toughest jobs in the world. Good fucking luck, right? But literally that was her commentary. So I think where white America, the message can penetrate white America first is the acknowledgement that people of color / immigrants are doing the tough jobs that they don't want to do.
Right.
And that's where the appreciation will come first, is this realization that no, when you throw these undocumented workers in concentration camps, they're not being replaced by white workers. It's a fraud that they were taking jobs. No, they were doing jobs that no white person's going to do. And now our economy, now that cushy economy that white people get to live off of, thrive off of, because the undocumented workers want to survive. White people get to thrive. Now they're going to see their quality of living go down because those workers aren't out there. Because now the strawberries are going to be like $18, right? Those strawberries they love to have in the summer, right? And all that shit. And now it's going to, then it'll impact them. That might be where the appreciation comes first. That's wishful thinking.
Right. Are there enough Medicaid recipients to work these fancy banquet hotels and to work at these work at the Motel 8s and these hotels that you see when you're driving down I-70 headed west? Where are we getting all these people from? Because cheap labor. Let's go back to the history of cheap labor, Brock. Right? It started as like black people didn't get lazy until we stopped working for free.
White people won't take the jobs.
They're not going to.
They won't take them.
Too hard.
Yeah, they won't take them. They won't take them.
So now, are we going to get rid of poverty? We're going to start educate. We don't want to educate black and brown people, right? The urban centers around the country are normally, right, the most underfunded, where you find the most undereducated, where you find the principal to prison pipeline, right? Like, so what kind of America do these people have sketched in their tiny little brains that they think they're making it great? I mean, because all I see is like, I mean, we are headed for a civil war.
Yeah.
Like,
I almost feel like it started. I feel like ICE is at war with the Latino community right now. Like that's the front lines of the war. And we're seeing it on the streets, right? You saw it at that cannabis farm in California. A lot of it's focused on California, and it's starting to cripple California's economy because they have so many undocumented workers out there. Oh, what, 7th largest economy in the world? But the federal government can fuck with them because ICE is an army, right? 15th largest military in the world, ICE now, budget-wise. So yeah, there's a civil war going on the streets, right? Somebody died today at one of those raids. It's kind of happening. It's just, white America's just watching it. I mean, I think so far, black America's watching it probably a lot closer than white America because you guys know you're next.
Right.
But the Civil War is kind of happening. Hey, there are armed people in masks trooping around neighborhoods all over the country. Right. I don't know if that's not Civil War. What is it then?
Right.
What is it?
What is it? Remember that big raid today at the cannabis farm, some 200 people taken into custody with ICE just, trooping around looking for brown folks. That cannabis industry was said to be the next big thing here in the U.S., right? And what was going on is that, and I have a lot of friends who were working toward getting in this industry. Remember, you couldn't get a bank account for a cannabis business. It had to be cash only, right? And then all of a sudden, right, you had these crazy laws like Oklahoma. If you were going to build a cannabis farm, it had to be under an acre with a roof. Like, hold it, who's going to build a structure, an indoor, horticulture facility to grow cannabis under an acre-sized building? Who's got money for that? White America. So all they were doing was trying to get their ducks in a row so they could corner the market on the cannabis industry. Well, now what's going to happen? Who do you think is working in all these places?
Yeah, who's working the fields?
Exactly. So, let's see what happens there. Because as much as they think they're making money, they're losing money too. They just don't see it.
Well, the owner of the cannabis plant farm that got raided today apparently was a big MAGA and Trump supporter.
Good for him.
So I think they're just kind of running into their own people along the way also. But of course, he was the owner, white guy owner, hiring a bunch of migrant workers because he ain't going out in the fields, right? So it's, look.
Who owns most of the businesses in America?
Project 2025 fund's philosophy of how America should look is running into that civil war with the real world dynamics of who makes up America and who does the work and helps to create the wealth. And the two of them aren't in sympathy, right? They aren't in sync. Like, it's one or the other. So it's kind of a collision of MAGA philosophies that are going on in its own right. And one's armed, right? So ICE is armed. So you got the hot Civil War part of the game. And then you have sort of the flip side of it, which is just the flat out racist policies and the attempt to whiten the white supremacy, the purging part of it. But that's why someone let slip the other day, well, we'll let these undocumented workers stay. Or maybe even Trump said it. Oh, Trump said it. That's right. We'll let these undocumented workers stay in the country if the employer takes ownership of them, and they can live on ownership, and they can live on the facility, on the grounds, and work on the grounds. There's the solution. If only they had thought about that in 1670. What an idea! The owner has the people on the grounds doing the work, so then they don't need documentation. Oh, but they can't leave the grounds.
Even better, they thought of it in 1619.
19, sorry. Thank you, I know, I forget. White guys were not as on top of this.
Even better.
1619. If only they thought of it in 1619. What an idea. Donald Trump, it just came around to Donald Trump yesterday that there's an idea to solve all these problems. This way, the money keeps rolling in, and the workers don't leave the confines of the work area so it doesn't scare or darken up the rest of America.
Or you give them traveling papers. Yeah, give them traveling papers. You know, like they used to do back in the day where Massa said you can go over to so-and-so farm, but then you got to come right back. We are fucked. America is so fucked right now.
But this is the shit people are saying out loud, like, and really believing.
Yes.
But here's it doesn't fucking work. And I don't know why white America isn't sitting around saying every day, for everyone has a megaphone, every fucker on TikTok, jokers like us on YouTube, and every fucking where are not every day saying this shit does not work. Not only is it appalling, not like it's not normal, and all these other fucking bullshit soft wording, right? A, it doesn't work. B, it's un-American. C, we're significantly in decline. And D, we're like a hair away from full-on autocracy. And it gets closer every day. And more ICE agents are getting hired, and more concentration camps are getting built, and more groups are being targeted. And for everyone to hit their quotas, they got to move beyond the Latino community pretty quickly here, because they're just going to run out of Latinos to round up.
They're going to run out. Yep, absolutely. And at some point, like we saw with the Haitian community in Brooklyn, there's going to come a sense of desperation. Look, the Haitians don't want to go back to Haiti. Have you seen what's going on down there? I mean, it is 10 to 15 times worse in Haiti than what we've got going on here. And that's hard to fathom, right? You got people riding around with AK-47s on motorcycles just popping off rounds. I mean, it is insane. They're kidnapping, raping people in broad daylight. They don't care, right? They've already run the government off. Right now, the warring gangs.
Yeah, I don't even know who runs Haiti right now. Like, is it even a recognized government in Haiti? I don't know.
Exactly. So nobody wants to go back there. So that's why they're fighting like hell when you come knock on their door. So, at some point, they're going to have to go back to that neighborhood, but they don't want to. I guarantee you that. Just like they said they were going to be getting these so-called criminals off the streets in the Latino community. When you're going to start that sweep? I can't wait for you to start that and see what's waiting for you. So, but whether it's the Latino community or the Haitian community, we need to all be behind them, right? And if we have to take up arms and do so, then let's do it, right? Because we look like clowns just taking it, sitting around, watching cable TV, waiting for training camp to start, waiting for school to go back, waiting to go get our school shopping supplies. You watch how many kids are going to be nabbed at the bus stop the first couple of weeks of school, right? It's going to be horrific, and it's going to be a joke. You're going to get parents coming out of Walmart where ICE agents are waiting, where they're coming out with school supplies. I mean, it's going to be this. We already know what it is. We already got a taste at the end of last school year what they were doing, snatching parents out of the carpool line. And here are people who are trying to do nothing but feed their families and earn an honest living. And you're sending them to a third world country, a third country where they don't even have any ties to for a possible life sentence? The fuck is the crime? I just don't understand it. I don't
Oh,
understand it. And we need to get past the whole banana in the tailpipe that the Latino community fell for and start backing them up.
yeah,
I
they
mean,
got to be beyond that, man. I can't
yeah,
imagine they would vote the same way now, 6 months later. But I guess the
exactly.
big question is, when does the sentiment, when does the language, when does the mentality change from we need to gear up for the midterm elections to like we can't take this for another day. Like we need to fight in the streets now. Like this is not we stop treating this like a wounded democracy and start looking at it as a former democracy and start already acting as if like what do we have to do to get democracy back because it's been already lost. Not
Right.
like how do we maintain democracy because I think it's already lost. I think you were right what you said earlier. Like if I was a betting man, would I be betting on the 2026 election? Not that I think we could get there anyway and not have fallen apart as a country. I think it'll get canceled one way or another. That might start the revolution, but by then, 18 more months of ice running around, like this country may be under lockdown by then.
Yep.
Now there's still a fighting chance.
Ain't no way, bro. Ain't no way. I don't see how we get there. I just don't. And there are far too many politicians looking forward to that, right? And a couple of yahoos and bozos on TikTok and X and Blue Sky.
I mean,
These
that's
26 elections, we ain't getting there.
you got to believe we're in a normal environment to be playing for 2026. You got to
Exactly.
believe that there's a government in place that's actually going to allow for the normal transition of power.
Right.
And are you really betting on that? That Donald Trump, this psychopath in mental decline, is actually going to allow the country to have a process that takes away from his power? So he's
Right.
going to willingly give up some of his power now that he has absolute power, basically owning all three branches of government. He's basically an autocrat right now in
Right.
in practice. So he's going to allow the winds of change to shift and have his power curtailed. That's the bet. That's the bet people are making. I'm not making that bet.
Me neither.
No fucking way. So like we need to be rallying forces now before this government gets too entrenched, before it becomes normal to have Marines on the streets, not just ICE, but National Guard and Marines.
Right.
Because Marines are now going into Louisiana. So they broke the precedent in California, nothing happened. Now there's Marines in Louisiana supporting ICE at the detention centers. Well, that's basically just a militarization of America, right? One city at a time or one region at a time. Well, if that's the case, what's different about that than civil war or autocracy? The only difference is there's no warring faction against the government. It's just an autocratic. In essence, it's a military state. Let's start talking about it as a military state.
Right. And again, America's losing at every turn, losing in tourism, losing when it comes to creation of wealth in this country, unless you got it already. If you're a billionaire, one of the 83 billionaires that's running this fucking clam bake, you don't care. But, for the rest of us, we're sitting around waiting for the beginning of the end. And you know what? We've got our popcorn already. So, the movie's about to start, folks. As far as I'm concerned, we're in the previews now. And the main event is just a few minutes away. So, if this is cool for you, sit back and enjoy. But I guarantee you now, 18 months from now, when you're looking around for an election and there are no ballot boxes to go to, then what? Then what? So,
I mean, there'll be fucking military at everywhere. So like, what are you
yeah,
gonna do?
you're not going to do shit.
Too
By
late
then,
by
it's
then.
too late. By then, it's too late.
And you
Hakeem
just got
Jeffries
maybe you hope you're not in one of those groups that's been shipped out to a concentration camp.
exactly.
But I'll tell
Hakeem
you, fucking
Jeffries.
Jews in America better not be waiting around for that and thinking they're on the right side of fucking anything.
Right.
Because if Jewish people think that they're not fucking on a list at some point, maybe we're not at the top of this list, not on this list, fucking crazy.
Well,
You're betting on
that's
the fact that this psychopath ain't getting to you? Like, I'd say that to any group. You think this psychopath's not getting to you eventually?
you can forget it.
You can fucking forget it.
And that's what I'm thinking, And it was interesting too when I was in Panama, Brock, about a month ago. Lots of people talking about moving. The realtor that I talked to told me her phone hasn't stopped ringing since January, since the end of January. She's been down there for several years already.
I don't want people to leave, right? I want them to stay and fight because I don't want to have to leave. So,
Right.
I won't leave because I don't fucking let Donald Trump take over America.
A D
Fucking
minus
kidding me?
student.
That fucking clown?
Captain Bone Spurs.
No fucking way.
All right, bro. Let's wrap it up right there. Great chat. Always a pleasure, my friend. Let's wrap it up. Try and do it again tomorrow.
All right, Mark. Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Peace.
Bye.